All right, hey, we're going to do some install tips here. We're working with a swing arm today. This will be what this tip does is it's with any one of our swing outs. So our swing outs come fully powder coated, but you know, as we all know, powder coating can't get to the inside of tube steel. So when we have areas where water can seep in, whether it be through off-roading or just generally weather, what we want to do is seal those areas up best we can. So we provide black silicone with all our swing outs. And what we're going to go do is we're going to go through and we're going to seal out the holes where we have bolts that go through, where we don't have welds or anything like that. So what we have here is for our utility rack for our fuel cans. Now, even if you don't get a utility can or fuel rack, you want to seal these up because water is going to seep in there and it's going to rust from the inside out. And we don't want that. And we've also got spaces inside the latch handle here where there are no welds. These are all outside welds. So we want to seal that up as well, up in there. What I'm doing is I'm just going through and I'm wiping it in that corner, down in there, and I'm just getting a nice bead where there is no weld and there's a possibility of a water to get in there. So what we're doing is we're sealing that up. Then we're going to come back through and we're going to hit every one of these holes and we're going to get a nice coating of silicone in there to seal it up from the weather. Another thing we're going to do with our Permatex on our bumper here, and this is true with, this happens to be a Pegasus, but it's true with our Lancer or our Red Eye or our new Ford Bronco bumper. We got areas in here where we want to seal this happens to be a step. I'm going to get a nice thin, right in the corners where water will accumulate and pool up. And that'll keep any kind of water from getting down inside and any kind of rust coming out. So on this bumper that we're hanging today, on our side steps here, what we have installed, now this is an option, up underneath here where you can't see it, we've got a marker light. So I've got that light secured up in there with this stainless steel bolt, but on the inside with that leftover Permatex, I went through and hit the top of the plug wire and both the bolt heads with that Permatex. So what we're going to be doing now is attaching the latch to our swing out. What we've done previously, we've gone through on the inside corners and we've got a nice coating of Permatex silicone all the way on the inside. I've also gone through and I've got each one of these holes and just hit it with a little bit of Permatex to seal it, because again, we have a bolt that's going to be going through. That's not sealed by water. We don't want water to pool up in there. We want our stainless steel bolts to last as much as possible. Yes, they're stainless steel, but there's a lot of environments out there are harsh. A lot of states out there use salt on their roads. Salt will eat this in a heartbeat. That's why we want to go through and seal everything that we can before we button it up. So we're going to put our swing out latch on now. So as we're looking at the swing out, it's facing us right now. We got our high lift jack mounts here. So this is going to be facing outwards of the truck. Our latch is going to go out towards the outside. Line it up there. We got a couple 1-inch bolts we're going to be putting on the outside. Just put it in there to hold it in place for yourself. Now I found it's better to put these outside bolts in first, because the inside bolts, you have very little room to maneuver. So get those out one just kind of snug, don't tighten them down yet. You're going to come around to these 3/4 inch bolts, feed down from the top. And again, we've sealed that hole with Permatex. Now you can either use the tape method, you know, tape the nut to your finger, push it down through, holding it up with your finger, feed it in. And we're going to get our 12 millimeter wrench, or 13 millimeter. And there we have the latch installed on the swing arm itself. So what we're going to do before we hang our bumper, make life easier on us, is we're going to put on our swing arm latch weldment. No, it can only go on one way. The holes are different sizes. Just match it up. Okay. Same thing with the weldment itself. It can only go on one way. There's two different size holes. Small to the inside of the bumper, large to the outside of the truck. So that's the way it's going to get put together. But first what we're going to do is we provided two bump stops here for that swing arm. You've got these two longer bolts and these two shorter bolts with accompanying hardware. Again, all stainless steel. The larger bolts go down through the bump stop, through the weldment. As it goes on to your bumper, like that. It's got to have enough room to go through your bumper, and we're going to be securing it with the inside with our hardware. So we're going to be going down and through, securing to the bumper, coming up from below, and that's a lot easier to do when the bumper's not on the truck. Now we've got the bottom stop put in place with the long bolts. Put the horizontal, or the vertical rather, in with the shorter bolts.
What do you put on there? Just washer?
We got a washer, lock nut, or a lock washer, and a nut. These are reset. So in order to get that in there nice and tight, you might have to put your wrench in, hold it in place. And just tighten it down. Okay, so now we're going to put the catch for our latch that we previously put on the swing arm. The actual latch is going to go on the outside. You want the long piece facing down. Line up your holes like that. So when that swing arm comes in, it's a tight fit. So you might have to trim with a grinder in through here and trim that bolt off to make sure the swing arm has plenty of clearance and you're not catching on it. Before we tighten down that second bolt for our latch, we want to be able to slip our bolt in that goes down through the bumper. The two of the largest, to see how the two large go to the outside, driver's side of the truck. The two smaller go toward the inboard. Now we can go back through and we can tighten up that last bolt. So that's your latch plate with your latch for your bail on the swing arm latch. You got your bump stop, a riser. Again, it can only go on one way. Holes match up, large holes. Then you're going to go down below in the bumper, washer, lock, washer, nut, tighten it down, then you're ready to hang your bumper. All right, for our swing outs, provided two bearings. You have one large, one small. But you want to pack those with grease. Do not use the silicone provided. You need to put grease in those. Now you see that each bearing is tapered, okay? Small side and a wide side. And that wide side, you see that gap right there? That's where we're going to be packing our grease in. Now, there are some fittings that you can use to do that. I prefer just to use the old-fashioned farm method. Get a wad of grease, put it in the palm of your hand, hold your bearing just like this, real simple, that wide spot, and all we're doing, forcing grease down to that gap there. Okay, we're not even done there. When we're done, it's going to start to bubble out the top here. That way you know those rollers in there are completely packed with grease. Now you can just start to see it oozing out the top. This isn't only going to help the functionality of that bearing, but it's also going to protect it from any kind of weather or water that gets in there. Again, do not use silicone in your bearings. It will not last and you will have a catastrophic failure. All right, so what we've done is we packed that gap all the way around, nice and evenly. And you know you got it packed when you can see that gap in the other side, the narrow side, filled with grease all the way around. You're going to do that with both the large and the small bearing. Now you want to be liberal at this point with your grease up inside your hub. Just get up in there. Get all the way around the race. Now the bearing itself goes tapered way, okay, tapered way up. The tapered direction, the bearing is tapered, fits up into the race like that. Then you got your grease cap. You're just going to put it in. And just tap it in with your mallet till it's flush. We don't want to get it up inside this lip. We're going to put some silicone in that just to seal up the top dust cap. So on this small bearing, remember we packed it. Okay, this is the small bearing. The tapered end will go down and fit flush right in there like that after we put our swing arm on. Boom. Get a shot down here. Boom. All right, now we're going to install our top bearing and our smaller bearing. The tapered side down. So it's going to go tapered side down. Slide it in. Work it down with your fingers. This is all supplied. You've got a cotter pin, washer, castle nut. Now we're going to take our flat washer on top of the bearing, castle nut. Now you don't want to over tighten it.
What is that? Oh, the
Cotter pin. I'm going to show it to you. Boom. Okay. So now that we've got our castle nut tightened down, we got the cotter pin inserted, we're going to take a little bit of our leftover silicone and we're going to get and seal. Even though we're going to install a dust cap, we're going to put some on that vertical edge to seal it up and prevent any water from getting down in there. Just a nice thin layer all the way on the outside edge there. Then we're going to take our Metal Tech dust cap and just work it on. Just like that. And insert our pop pin, screw it down. Now we're going to test our pop pin, make sure it locks into place. There you go. That'll hold your swing arm open so you can get in the back of your vehicle. Right up in here, this is a good tip before you hang your bumper. This is on the passenger side up there in the rear corner. That is your pop pin, your latch holder. So I'm just showing how hard that is to get to once the bumper's already on. So that's something that you want to install after or before the bumper's hung. Same thing over here with your latch. This one you can get to a lot easier, but it's still much easier to do with the bumper off the truck. You want to start in the back corner and then work your way out. That way you can reach all of them. So there is a right and a wrong way to put this on. Also on your strut here for your swing arm, you want the body of the strut facing away from the hub. If you put it in here, it's going to rub. So you want it opposite. Right there. Have your swing arm open when you're doing this. It's a lot easier. So when you're tightening down your strut, you're going to come up underneath the bumper. I found it's best to use a long extension and a ratchet. 13 millimeter, I believe. Come up, tighten down the one nut, washer and lock washer. Come on the outside, tighten it down, same thing. And that's correct installation. Now we're going to test the swing arm. Release the pop pin. And at this point, you can adjust your latch. With these stop nuts here, tighten them down. You've got a nylon nut here, and then you've got two stop nuts to adjust for the height of your latch. Next, we're going to be installing our tire stinger right here on our swing arm. But what we're going to do, we're just going to loosely put in our bolts. These are 3/8, 4-inch 3/8 bolts. You're going to get 3 of them in your stinger kit. So when you insert it, okay, it's shaped like a triangle, triangle up. And I'm just going to loosely put on the nuts for now. Now, see how this close right here sits pretty close to the truck, bouncing around, things like that. We don't want that. So we're going to mark it 2 different places. So I'm going to trim. There's no exact science. We just want enough clearance between the door and the stinger. So I'm going to trim that much off. But also what I'm going to do is I'm going to come through here, and this is a locking feature to keep that stinger from moving back and forth. We purposely don't machine a hole through it. So what you're going to do is come in, just mark it. And we're going to drill that out real quick, and we'll be right back.